It's time that we get to some appreciating. Where franchises like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and many others succeed due to their worlds, Indiana Jones succeeds due to its character. I would be blown away if any of the countless pieces of Indiana Jones media didn't have to do with the title character, and the Great Circle video game, which is right around the corner, is no exception to that. The new first-person shooter is bound to be the ideal Indiana Jones video game for many people within Generation Alpha, but I am not in that generation. So today we're going to be talking about a bunch of older Indiana Jones games instead. What makes an Indiana Jones game stand out from other adventures? It's three focuses, or three pillars is what I like to call it. Let's turn these pillars sideways so you can actually read them normally and start off with the first, which is exploration. How much can I explore these tombs that I will be raiding? What's traversal like? Indiana Jones would explore catacombs, tombs, caves, and god damn it, I should be able to do the same while solving puzzles and avoiding booby traps, which is our second pillar. Puzzles and booby traps are going to go hand in hand for a ton of these games. How many puzzles are there available? How good are the puzzles? And do they end with me being smashed flat as a pancake like a Tom and Jerry cartoon? Our third pillar is our character that gets smashed as flat as a pancake, Indiana Jones. How suave do I feel while playing the game? Who are my sidekicks? How badass is my combat? When can I use my whip? Is it just for combat, or is it also a tool for traversing temples and ruins? All these pillars are going to have their own ratings of 1 out of 10 for each game, and then at the end, we're going to give each one an overall score and rank them, showing what is the best and what is the greatest Indiana Jones game out there to play. So throw on those fedoras and get those leather jackets on. We're going to be starting with Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, the graphic adventure where you point and click your way through the entirety of an original Indiana Jones journey. Fate of Atlantis was a spiritual successor to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and released on June 26, 1992. They added speaking lines for all the characters, which The Last Crusade, the video game, did not have any of that.
Why should I, you fat tub of lard?
It only had the ear-stabbing sound of your feet walking around. And not only did they get audio improvements, they upped their animation budget by a ton with Fate of Atlantis. No more stick figures fighting, now you could watch Indy tackle somebody and it looked fluid. The fluid animations are very noticeable at the beginning of the game because they make Indiana Jones look like an absolute dunderhead by having him fall through 5 ceilings worth of floors. And since he has about 5 concussions worth of brain damage, Fate of Atlantis tries to make things easier for you, so instead of just aimlessly pointing and clicking everywhere like in the Last Crusade game, which you can see in footage here, Fate of Atlantis just highlights the only actions that can be used on each item that you're hovering over. This cuts your pointing and clicking time in half compared to the last game they worked on. It takes out every time that you might have been confused when clicking on pick up or open or look around as actions, and now you can just check out the highlighted actions and it saves so much time for the player. And we all know how much I love a game that respects your time. Due to the new highlight system, the puzzles feel less obnoxious, more straightforward, and honestly just more rewarding because they are just as hard as the Last Crusade game, but without all the filler and without all the reliance of remembering the movie while you're playing. Fate of Atlantis provides you with every bit of context you need to solve its puzzles without outside influence. That's an 8 out of 10 because a lot of point and click adventures have a problem with that. The exploration and traversing with super colorful 80s environments is just so charming, especially with those new animations. It's more charming than you'd expect. I mean, it had me drooling like the doofus man who picks Willie as the best girl. There's quite a bit to explore here to just check out your surroundings or to be able to solve a puzzle, and with all this gorgeous animation and the environments of the game, I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10 in terms of exploration. How do you make a point and click adventure to where you can feel like Indy? How are you going to fulfill that third pillar? Well, you're going to do it with dialogue choices. You're taking advantage of the visual novel elements to be able to make you feel like the fedora wearing badass. They give you so many dialogue responses and unique scenarios that I would not have expected. You can try and get into this building multiple times and they have a unique piece of dialogue for every single one until that third time when Indy says third time's the charm, and that's the last one they did dialogue for.
Third time's the charm.
but it's dedication like that to create minor details that would make you never fall out of the immersion, never fall out of role-playing as my boy Indiana Jones, who has had 5 concussions, so of course he'd be trying to get inside a blocked-off building 3 times in a row. 8 out of 10. Feeling like brain-damaged Indiana Jones probably would have been a 7, but I add an extra point for all that unique dialogue that players probably aren't even going to notice on their first playthrough. This is not going to be the best Indiana Jones game, but as a graphic adventure, it's one of the best I've ever played, and I actually really recommend it. I recommend The Last Crusade as well, but this was like a top-tier point-and-click game for me. Not even just an indie adventure, but actually a point-and-click game. This was fantastic. Overall, as an Indiana Jones game, Fate of Atlantis gets a 7 out of 10. After beating Fate of Atlantis multiple times and getting all 3 endings, we can move on to the 3D era of Indiana Jones with the Infernal Machine, released on November 15th, 1999 on N64 by LucasArts. So I have a weird relationship with this one. If you have not played Tomb Raider games growing up, then this will probably be awesome for you. And if you did, it's gonna kind of feel like a Tomb Raider game with an Indiana Jones reskin, which, to be fair, Tomb Raider games also follow these 3 pillars that make an Indiana Jones game: the pillar of exploration, the pillar of puzzles and booby traps, and the pillar of feeling like a sexy badass with Lara Croft or a sexy badass with Indiana Jones. Well, young Indiana Jones. My wrinkly boy over here ain't getting any girls, like, I'm sorry. We're whipping Infernal Machine towards us for a close examination because starting with exploration, I kinda love it. Sure, critics dissed it for being a Tomb Raider clone, and I would agree with that partially, but it's a good Tomb Raider clone. Do people diss newer Tomb Raider games for being Uncharted clones? No, not at all. They're still good, and that's what people care about. Infernal Machine gets an 8 out of 10 for exploration. It's that first big step that it needed to take into the 3D era. This is the type of exploration I hope Indiana Jones and the Great Circle goes for. Lots of different options, little maps I can explore around, and just take inspiration out of that. Use that, because this game did it pretty well. Puzzles and booby traps, oh dear God. Some of the hardest levels here, they range from being just plain irritating to fantastic. It just depends on where you are. I love all the different environments and enemies. Now you can encounter animals as an enemy type, which is cool. But yeah, I'm gonna do a 5 out of 10 in puzzles because sometimes it's great, sometimes it's repetitive, and sometimes it's just bad. And the bad can come from being confused, or it can just come from the platforming not being well refined for 1999. You'll find yourself going back and forth between, that was clever, and I fucking hate this game. The amount you can do as Indiana Jones, from that driving to the climbing to the fighting and using your whip whenever you want, is just an auto 7 out of 10 for me, because that's all the minimums that we expect from every game moving forward from here on out. I am hoping that Great Circle takes a lot from this game, especially in the exploration department, because the environments are gorgeous here for 1999. The adventure feeling is always there when I'm traveling, and they might only achieve some of the minimum for the feeling of being indie, but it was starting those minimums that made games like Emperor's Tomb and Staff of Kings blossom in that pillar. They really try hard with that part of their game, playing that character. That's something we'll get into soon. Overall, a high 7 out of 10 for being a par to above par Tomb Raider clone with stunning graphics that got so much flack at release, with 6 out of 10 reviews around every corner, and even being nominated as the biggest disappointment by GameStop in 1999. In my opinion, this game is not any of that. It's a great start to all the 3D Indiana Jones games to come after it. If you're a 2000s kid, your favorite Indiana Jones game must be Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb. Well, maybe. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to say that for everybody. But Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb released on February 25th, 2003, and was quickly seen by a lot of people as the best 3D indie game. Now, I'm going to be straight up with you. I fucking adore this game. It's not the best game ever, but it's the best 7 out of 10 game ever. You get what I mean? It's the best $20 on sale in 2004 at your local GameStop. Or it's the best blockbuster rental you could ever make. Emperor's Tomb enhanced that feeling of being Indiana Jones by letting you use your whip as a prompted tool for traversal. swinging on gargoyles, and they also used it for stunning and combat. You can also cut through vines with your machete as another traversal tool, or you can occasionally use your revolver to quickly take out an enemy in combat as a fighting tool. Fighting is a core component of the Emperor's Tomb because it is the most action-packed indie game yet, with punching and fighting with random items scattered across the map like knives, chairs, or pool cues. This had not been in previous titles at all. This improvised fisticuffs combat replicated the indie of the films and was even an inspiration for pretty much all later indie games. All the ones covered on this list later on, and even the new Great Circle game coming out where they've said that they're going to take a backseat to shooting and focus more on interactables. Even the way they were able to incorporate the health bar gives you that feeling. They connected the health bar to your canteen bottle. You fill up your water bottle and it works as a health source. And if you run out of your canteen bottle, you got to run across the map until you find a new fountain to be able to refill it at. That is a very smart way to have a health bar in an Indiana Jones title. You could get into a fight, lose your hat, and pick it up right after you were done beating the shit out of a guy. How much more Indiana Jones could you get? 9 out of 10. I like playing a sexy fedora man. Now, the puzzles and booby traps are kind of weird in this one because they all present themselves in the exact same way. You see an area that is inaccessible in the beginning of a chapter. You progress through a puzzle, you pull a lever, and you unlock the area at the end, making the inaccessible accessible now. It's rewarding, but it feels really, really dumbed down compared to the point-and-click adventure of Fate of Atlantis or even Infernal Machine. I could solve all these as a 5-year-old, and that's not necessarily a bad thing for 5-year-old version of me, but like the 20-year-old version of me, this is child's play. It's just a bit boring. Luckily, the booby traps are awesome and they're in almost every area in the entire game. 6 out of 10 for puzzles because they're kind of middle of the road with some janky platforming, but the booby traps make up for them. The adventure throughout Emperor's Tomb is very linear, but every area you explore is filled with action and tons of details like chandeliers you can swing with your whip on, environmentals you can use to distract enemies and animals, and all custom enemies with new weapons in every single level. Exploration is not key to Emperor's Tomb at all, but they give you so many places to go, so many enemies to fight, so many animals to mess around with, and weapons to use that it adds a sense of adventure to an otherwise straightforward adventure. So it's going to get a 7 out of 10 from me as a story-driven experience with not much to explore outside of what the story makes you do, but there's still plenty to see and do with everything the story provides. Emperor's Tomb is my highest rating so far as an 8 out of 10 overall, and it's my personal favorite on this entire list. I grew up with this thing, and yes, part of that is nostalgia. I don't give a shit. We're not gonna pussyfoot around here. We're not pussyfooting around the Lego games either. We go at them hard because we're gangster like that. Whip these Lego games up onto the screen. The one on the left right here is Lego Indiana Jones 1. The one on the right is Lego Indiana Jones 2. Both you'd think would be the same type of game, but they're vastly different. Translating that, one is good, one is bad. Have you ever sat around as a kid playing Lego Indiana Jones 1 and knowing it's not the best Indiana Jones game or even the best Lego game, but like, nah, it's the best Indiana Jones game and the best Lego game? These are the arguments that I have with myself, the philosophical arguments I battle with every single day, because the Indiana Jones IP, in my opinion, fits perfectly with the conventional Lego game formula. Let me explain that. A Lego game always has puzzles, building puzzles, key puzzles, and special character ability puzzles. So the booby traps and puzzles pillar fits perfectly with this. The first area of Lego Indiana Jones 1, you build bridges, get past arrow traps, spears popping out of the floor, and turn a key to unlock the golden idol from the first movie. You get this as you play through every movie. This feeling, they're puzzles that are made for 5-year-olds, but it's a Lego game, and these are varied enough to where you never get bored playing the game. You always have new puzzles because Indiana Jones always has new puzzles, and the Lego game formula needs new puzzles. It's a 9 out of 10 in terms of puzzles and booby traps. It's just enjoyable to experience. It's fun. LEGO games are also known for their interactables. You can pick up random equipment, random chairs, spears, swords, and guns to use in combat, and all the tropes in the Indiana Jones movie fights fits like a glove, or in this case a fedora, into the LEGO game formula. You never just have a gun and a whip, you use all the interactables that Indy would use in the movies, and that also fits him with the LEGO formula. 9 out of 10. Thank you for capturing the feeling of being Indiana Jones. Speaking of the feeling of being Indiana Jones, in every single movie he always has great sidekicks, and in the games, because you're always recreating the events of the movies, you always have a second player that can play as the sidekick, and that's awesome. The environments, just like other Indiana Jones games, recreate a lot of the iconic moments from Indiana Jones 1 through 3, with my personal favorite being the final level of The Last Crusade. You're solving the tests of God in LEGO form, and it just hits different. And all the secrets and extra characters that you can unlock to use their abilities to unlock new areas that you weren't able to with your first playthrough. This is just standard LEGO game formula stuff, unlocking other areas with newer characters, but this also works in tandem with the Indiana Jones pillars because exploration is one of those. You see what I mean? The LEGO game formula matches with the Indiana Jones formula perfect. 8 out of 10 for exploration. But I can't stop there. There's the Indiana Jones University, you know, the one he works at as a professor, and it's the hub world. Fuck it. When we are in doubt, we aim high. We ball. 9 out of 10. Going around as LEGO Indiana Jones overall gets a 9 out of 10. But wait, they let you whip any woman LEGO character towards LEGO Indy to kiss so you can really feel like Indiana Jones. Why does every girl decide to kiss him? I don't know, it's fucking Harrison Ford from the 80s. I'd kiss the guy if he whipped me towards him. 10 out of 10. It's the best Indiana Jones experience you can find in a video game in the year of our Lord 2024. Now what's one of the worst? LEGO Indiana Jones 2. It's basically the polar opposite and feels more like an expansion pack of the first game rather than doing its own thing. There's the new level creator, which was a cool idea, but whenever you do something like this in a game, I always point out that you should be able to download community levels, because for somebody like me who lacks any imagination whatsoever, I just want to play other people's stuff and not my own. But for everything else in the game that's not this level builder, what is the quality of LEGO Indiana Jones 2? Well, much like it being the only game I've ever seen to feature Nazis breakdancing, it's odd in a bad way. But it's also kind of funny. They repeat the same 5 level designs on loop, with a boss fight being one of them, wave-based fighting being another, solving a puzzle without enemies, a car chase where you ram into other vehicles, or you're outside of a level and you're in the overworld where you're transitioning from level to level. They repeat this over and over, and even do it with the first 3 movies, not even just Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The worst part is that they don't even take the iconic areas that were used in the first game, but instead they use the in-between segments of all the exciting stuff in each movie, or at least each one of the first 3 movies. And this is part of the reason why LEGO Indiana Jones 2 feels more like an expansion. It feels like a bunch of bonus levels to the first 3 movies that weren't included in Indy 1. And I'll give credit where credit's due. I mean, they've got balls. It's a weird game. They throw in boss fights like fighting the power of God at the end of Raiders, or fighting a giant rock version of Kali Ma from Temple of Doom, just like breakdancing Nazis. This game is kind of weird, and it misses the mark in a lot of ways. Due to repeating these repetitive level designs, there's no exploration, there's barely even levels, you don't even move from place to place, you stay in one area and complete the level formula until you're finished. I am not joking when you are transitioning in the overworld, it is the only place that you can go from one location to another in the entire game. It feels like every single mission that you play, that you start, was built in the level builder that came with the freaking game. It's boring and it feels community made. That's fine. Like, it would be fine if it was just bonus levels that I downloaded from some random 40-year-old virgin who lives in Kentucky, but it's not cool for the entire base game. It would be like if Halo's campaign felt like it was made in Forge mode. Doesn't that just sound atrocious? That's terrible. The exploration is just bad, with the only positive really being the overworld that can be really fun to explore. 4 out of 10. The combat and traversal is a little bit similar to the first game, but it's slightly worse because there's a wonky targeting system now that doesn't even do what you want it to do half the time. So 7 out of 10, which I still think is good. So do what you will with that. Due to the repetitive levels and how only one of them is a puzzle, there's literally barely any puzzles or booby traps for the entire game. They're basically non-existent for 4/5 of the main story, and there's some bonus puzzles in the overworld that are okay, but it just makes for one of the weirdest and just worst LEGO games I've played. It's really just a frustrating experience. I would give it a 4 out of 10 with the puzzles and booby traps. I didn't even do most of the crap in the open world because I really just don't care. It's a very boring game to play. It's all the more disappointing when you compare it to the absolute perfection that is LEGO Indiana Jones 1 as being probably the best Indiana Jones feeling game and possibly even the best LEGO game ever made. It really is, like, by the end of this list, it's so ironic that LEGO Indiana Jones 1 manages to be the best Indiana Jones game in my opinion. And you thought we were done here. We got one more quick one for you guys with Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings, but we're only talking about the Wii version, which released on June 9th, 2009. We pick up the Wii one because it takes one of those pillars that we're talking about, the feeling of being Indiana Jones, and it takes it to all new heights while hunting for the Staff of Moses in the storyline. By the way, the Staff of Moses is probably the coolest artifact ever put into an Indiana Jones game. Combat-wise on the Wii, where you use the motion controls, you can pick up interactables like shovels, and you can smash people around in the environment, which really does make the game shine as being the best one on this list for feeling like the man himself, the man with the fedora. Staff of Kings may lack the energy in puzzles, booby traps, and exploration, but it does not lack any of the energy that it puts into using motion and controls to make you become Indiana Jones, become the man himself. Give me these controls in first person with a VR headset, and you might as well change my dog's name to Indiana. 9 out of 10 only due to the occasional jankiness of the Wii motion controls. That's really the only reason why I would not give it a 10 out of 10 in terms of feeling like Indy. The booby traps and puzzles here are not very complex, and they're not rewarding to figure out. They're also just not that common. The game very heavily leans into action. It's a 4 out of 10 from me. At least the LEGO games, I got rewards like studs and mini kits, so it felt a little bit more rewarding to figure those ones out. Exploration here is also just really minimal, and it's only slightly redeemed through the environment being a weapon for you to use. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 because it does make you seek out a little bit on what you can do to hurt your enemy using the environment. Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings for the Wii gets a somewhat low 7 out of 10 on my scale overall, but that doesn't undermine how creative the motion controls are in combat here. Now let's move on to our ranking, our final list, and what I appreciate most about each game, starting with number 1. And LEGO Indiana Jones 1 is in first place, with what I appreciate most being how LEGO managed to find the perfect IP for their formula. Emperor's Tomb is in second place, and what I appreciate most here is all the different locales and enemies that you encounter. Fate of Atlantis is in third with a multitude of dialogue options, the great voice actor, and all the animations that just look gorgeous. Infernal Machine is in fourth with being able to bring Indiana Jones into the 3D landscape with different ways of traversing everything with vehicles and climbing that every newer title within Indiana Jones has. They all started here with this first 3D game. That's what I respect, and that's what I appreciate most about it. Staff of Kings is the 5th game right now, with 3, 4, and 5 all being tied with 7 out of 10s overall. But Staff of Kings easily excels with its motion controls inclusion. It's super fun, and even though some people give the game a hard time, I think they're a little bit too rough on it. Give the game a break. Use that energy where it's more useful, like insulting LEGO Indiana Jones 2, which that's the last place on our list. This is the only game I don't like on this list, but I respect and appreciate so much about the level builder, which includes so many fantastic features for forgers, and I also love hog-tying people with my whip and dragging them around the place. Honestly, LEGO Indiana Jones 2 is kind of one of those funny things where if it was a DLC or an expansion pack, it would be way better, because I would actually love to do a playthrough of LEGO Indiana Jones 1, do the first mission, and then put on LEGO Indiana Jones 2, do the first mission, and then swap back and forth between the two. The problem is you'd have to switch apps or switch discs, and nobody's got time for that. Maybe when I'm retired, sitting in a leather jacket with a fedora and a beer and a recliner someday, but like, that is how I would love to experience this game, but that would be experiencing it as a DLC to LEGO Indiana Jones 1. Just being able to swap back and forth between the missions and get the full movie that I can play through in LEGO form. We didn't cover every Indiana Jones game out there, but tell me down below if there was one that you wish we got to, or if you've been playing The Great Circle and what you think about it. Comment down below what your favorite Indiana Jones game is. Like this video, and don't forget to subscribe and become a true appreciator. Speaking of which, you already know what we do on this channel. We are going to be appreciating every single little piece of art out there, and I will always appreciate you.